mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad?
My mom and my dad.
Okay.
So you called the police, but at that point you had already decided.
We had decided not to.
You weren't going to say anything.
We had decided that our feeling was not, we'll just explain what happened and it'll be okay. We were very stunned, and we felt that we would go to jail, obviously, and it was a selfish reason to just not want to have to go through that.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? It's been so long. I've missed everybody. It almost feels like maybe this channel and myself have been the subject of conversation. Almost feels like that, just a little bit. So I just want to really thank everybody who sent me emails, who sent me well wishes, and even good thoughts. It was very touching. I'm not as good at this as Patty. You know, my channel has never really been about me or what's going on with my life. So I am a little awkward in talking about it, but I just want to say, so if you don't know, what happened was, well, let me go back. What happened was, let's say, I don't know when this was, like a couple months back, I noticed like a really vicious Reddit post. And, you know, I am not popular on Reddit. I get it. So I'm used to it. But this was particularly nasty, like one, nasty comment after the other, and very personal in a community where other people had gotten kicked out for saying very slight things about other creators in this same community that talks about this case. So, I had felt that there was some like a storm of brewing behind the scenes of maybe some people who are in this community who are unhappy or didn't like me. And, I felt that. And at the same time, another creator went public with the harassment that she was getting and eventually, started naming names because after, warning them that, to knock it off, she's going to call them out. No one likes doing this. So, I get that I have strong opinions. I've picked almost, I have lots of unpopular opinions in true crime. I wanted to create a space where we could talk about things openly, no matter what our opinions were. And I always felt that if someone had a problem with me, that they could come and talk to me about it. But so I did not expect this to happen from someone who was a moderator on my channel. That I did not expect that. And so when I heard about, although I didn't see it, although I have seen it, when I heard about this moderator on my channel posting a video of really slick, like call to action cult feeling video, like we're gonna like call to arms kind of video, like everybody who cares, and using the hashtag justice for Dan Markel, like everybody who cares about Dan Markel up against the backdrop of Kill Bill Volume 2 decapitation scene with another creator's logo on the license plate, and then with the phrase, we're going to, take all these bitches down, or something to that effect. And I guess I was one of those bitches, because when I opened up my YouTube studio account, I had gotten 6 copyright strikes from this moderator. So if you don't know about like how YouTube copyright strikes work, there's 2 ways you can copyright strike someone. There's one way where you can just take the money from the video, right, until the person edits it out. And there's lots of manipulation with that. It's just one of the bummers of being on YouTube. Don't get me walking down that. But if you get one of those kind of strikes, fine, you can edit out whatever they say is the offending content, and you can go on your merry way. There's a second kind of copyright strike, which is I am striking this channel. Excuse me, a little Freudian slip there. I'm striking your video, meaning it's not accessible to you and it's hidden from view. And I'm striking your channel. And every time you do that with a video, so you have 3 strikes, you're out policy on YouTube. And so when I got these 6 copyright strikes of this kind from my own moderator about use of his work that he had previously been very complimentary about me using and had given me his permission, I'm just so shocked that he didn't, why he thought that we couldn't have a conversation if he had changed his mind. But we'll get to that. Why he didn't feel he could come to me for the, for the terrible offense of not, I feel, this is how I feel about it, that we're not joining in on the hate gang against this other creator. I didn't speak about it at all. And I felt awful as she's saying this has reached like behavior that has reached criminal levels. And I don't know if it's them doing it. We don't know. Could be someone else, but she's had to go to the police. And I believe it now, possibly more than once. It's like been, it's all because they don't like her. For what reason? I don't know. When nobody's communicating, you just don't know. But suddenly she's persona non grata number 1, and she's not for justice for Dan Markel, but we're for justice for Dan Markel. We're the only people that can express that and be that. And if we just use the hashtag enough, then we really mean it. And if we just put it on a slick enough video, we'll really rally the troops and show that anybody that sides with this, creator, if you haven't guessed, I'm talking about Patty's Playhouse, then you're not for justice for Dan Markel. You're not about victims' rights, et cetera, et cetera. I just found it really shocking. So I had 5 days. So YouTube's informing me with these 6 copyright strikes that all the work I've done for the past 7 or 8 years is going to be taken down in 5 days. And when I'm contacting YouTube, they're telling me that I don't have a copyright strike problem. I have a harassment issue and I need to go to the police and get a lawyer. I mean, this is just not stuff that I ever thought I would deal with when I created my channel. I'm not here for this. And, it was so obvious to me that I was the bitch, one of the bitches he wanted to take down. And for what reason, I don't know. The last time I had any contact with this moderator, he was asking me on his channel, and I said yes. That's the last contact. And I don't know if they assume that because they like to do things passive aggressively and behind the scenes that they think I'm doing, they're thinking in their head that I'm doing something passive aggressively behind the scenes. This creator should know from working closely with me for, I think, over a year, that I've never discussed doing anything like that, never have done anything like that. I'm so busy, nor do I have the will, interest in harassing other people. I have so many spinning plates being the only creator going here. It's not just time. It's not I'm too busy for it. I don't have the interest for it either. Let's just put it that way. But when I saw that film and I heard about what the threats were, when Patty talked about what these threats were, because I had worked for Gavin DeBecker and Oprah, you know, he taught me threat assessment when I worked for Oprah, the Gavin DeBecker Associates. If you haven't read The Gift of Fear, it's excellent. Highly recommend it. I knew that these would have been threats had we gotten them at Oprah magazine back in the day, that these would have hit high levels, and that these are the person doing it, meaning I'm talking about my moderator in that video. Let's just keep it to that. The person who made that video is someone who's comfortable with violence and violence against women. That's just what I'll say, what I concluded. That, and I feel pretty comfortable saying that. But what disturbed me more was that he had used all his talents and had made this slick video like in such a cult-like mindset. Like these were the bad people. And I know something about cults. I attended the NXIVM trial, all the NXIVM hearings, Keith Raniere's cult, and Larry Ray's cult, which is my alma mater, where I graduated from, Sarah Lawrence College. And for anyone on that Reddit post who said I probably didn't graduate, I graduated. Okay, I have a diploma, BA. Okay, nothing to brag about. So Larry Ray was a convict who went to my college not too long back, many years back, and started his own kind of cult, which was for financial gain and basically for a feeling of power and control over these kids. And that I never thought it was going to get worse. You know, I don't think it's ever been worse emotional trial than that trial. But I understand cult-like thinking. And no one in a cult, no one joins a cult to join a cult. They join a empowerment group, personal growth group. They always think that they're doing good. So no one in NXIVM thought that, you know, and if you don't know about NXIVM, their leader, Keith Raniere, is doing 120 years in prison. No one thinks that they're doing bad when they're doing bad and they're breaking the law in a cult. They think that they're that's how bad people get broken and personality disordered. I'm talking about how these psychopaths get some broken people to do things. And some fairly functional people to do things too, is by telling them we're crusading for good, we're going forward, we're going to do good things. No one tells them, you know, you're going to break the law and you're going to end up in prison and pleading out like 6 of them did, and I think 5 or 6 of them did in NXIVM. So I've just been really sad about it and reflecting and thinking about what I did and how and what I overlooked, what warning signs I overlooked. I'm not certainly not gonna jump at getting a moderator anytime soon, but that's what happened. It's all been fixed. Eventually, with the threat of a lawyer and going to the law enforcement, which is what YouTube told me to do. I mean, it wasn't a threat. It's what they told me to do. It wasn't a threat. I can't call it a threat. It was informing what the next moves were from this. He uncopyright struck it. And I don't know. His channel has disappeared from YouTube now. So that's what's going on. But I don't know what I overlooked. What signs I overlooked. To have someone who expresses themselves, and this kind of goes into what I'm going to talk about today, which is the Menendez brothers. I'm sorry if this is so boring and long. If you just came to talk about hear about the Menendez brothers, I'm getting to it. What I overlooked. And what signs I overlooked and how I couldn't see it. That's what I've been thinking about. Besides the Menendez brothers, which is, another case where we have a whole group of people and their PR is amazing. If you look up the Menendez brothers and you look for, say, some of the bad evidence and things that they did pre-trial, it's really hard to find. It is so, their PR has so papered the internet searches with their positive PR and the things that they went out there. Who is the money behind this? I have to ask. If you don't know me, if you're new to the channel, I'm going to catch up on channel memberships right now. If you're new to the channel, I'm Roberta Glass. I talk about true crime cases with an interest in victims' rights and innocence fraud, and working from the court documents and from the courtroom when I can. Gladys Kravitz, thanks for becoming a member. Wesley loves Oktoberfest. Thanks for becoming a member. Dean Walker, Old Faithful, nice to see you. Poor Dean is like, I just came on for a show. I think he's been out of the loop. So I'm just curious who the money is. I have been asking asking around to my fellow true crime researchers, who's the money behind this? No one knows. No one knows. Because the Menendez brothers are broke. They were broke by the second trial. So and I don't think that the relatives, maybe, this is mega bucks. This makes me think it's Rosie O'Donnell's behind this. Mark Garagos, who also coincidentally represented Claire Bronfman in the NXIVM case, who I saw in the courtroom, does not come cheap. So who's behind all this? Who's behind all this? Gotta be Rosie, right? Or they're raising money behind the scenes with their, Justice for Victims organization that, but how have we normalized killing your parents as a normal thing? That as a normal reaction to said essay. I'll talk in YouTube friendly terms if I can. How has that become how is it we were like, well, yeah, they claimed they were essayed. Oh, they had to kill their parents. They were 18 and 21. Well, even a good friend of mine was arguing with me. Well, I think it's true. I was like, watch their testimony again. Look at all the lies they get caught in. What other case did we ever have like this with this kind of $1.78 million in spending spree? If it was all in a matter of months, if it was about abuse. And where are the witnesses for Kitty? Because they say that both parents did it. And there's something about their testimony that looks great when you first watch it. And then, it kind of works the first time if you're not looking too closely. But then when you watch it again, it looks completely put on. Don't forget that Erik was an actor. But it's like we're all supposed to forget that their argument that was that both parents did this, according to Leslie Abramson, although their testimony is very different than what Leslie Abramson even argued, who was Erik's lawyer, in her closing argument. She talked about if this kind of abuse was from 1 to 10, it would be a 10 to the most horrific. So 1 being the least horrific, 10 being the most horrific. 10 kind of abuse for years and years and years, which is strangely the argument that she made about Arnel Salvatierra, who was a 17-year-old who killed his father, Oscar Salvatierra. Guess what he got? Probation. So it was so successful, which is why I think Erik Menendez's parents, family sought Leslie Abramson out. Excuse me, Freudian slip there. But this is a major, 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 major campaign, well-funded, well thought out PR offensive that we have going here. So I wanted to start out with the naysayers before we go, which is someone you didn't see at last time we were together. We were looking at the family, which seemed like a lot of real extended family, younger family, except for Kitty Menendez's sister. And if you look at the picture of the two of them together, it's quite stiff, and you wonder what their relationship was like. She's 90. But besides for her, it looked like a lot of very distant cousins. They seemed not to know who each other were. It was an odd press conference. And Mark Garrigo said, well, not everyone is here. Some family members don't believe that the two should be released. So the family was together on the courthouse steps or in front of the DA, then in front of, I believe, a courthouse office. And then they went to the DA's office with a press conference saying, release the Menendez brothers, because this new evidence, and I thank you. And I'll go over Roy Rosello's affidavit in another, thank you to the listener who sent that to me. I'll go over that in another episode. But with Roy Rosello's affidavit, and they seem to be wanting to capitalize on the Netflix series and also Monsters, even though they all hate it, all the supporters hate it, and all the TikToks of these 18 and younger girls who are like, aren't they cute? Oh, isn't Leslie Abramson the greatest? Aren't they cute? Oh, didn't he give a cute look? Because with their blank stares and their flat affect, you can project anything you want onto Lyle and Erik Menendez. Their quietness their quiet psychopathy can be confused for sensitivity. But if not, if you don't see that, you can see whatever you want to see. They're a blank slate. So Kitty's brother has not been mentioned, and he does not want them released. So let's take a look.
That is one side of the story, but another member of the Menendez family sees it very differently.
He thinks the brothers need to stay in prison.
Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes live in Beverly Hills to tell us who he is and why he feels that way. Rob.
Yeah, not everyone believes Lyle and Erik Menendez should be released. One of those people is Milton Anderson, not a very well-known name, but his sister Kitty Menendez was shot and killed by the brothers in this house. An impressive sight today outside the courthouse where the Menendez brothers were sentenced. Extended family members of the brothers surrounded by a sea of media asking for the two to be released from prison. But not every family member feels that way.
Mr. Anderson firmly believes that his nephews were not molested. He believes that that is a fabrication, and he believes that the motive was pure greed.
Attorney Kathy Cady represents Milton Anderson, the brother of Kitty Menendez. This photo of the siblings taken just 3 weeks before Kitty was shotgunned to death by her two sons in 1989. Cady says Anderson, who is now 90 years old, wants the brothers to remain imprisoned and serve their life sentences at the very least for killing his younger sister.
At the time.
So when he testified, they destroyed him because he put in a claim for her estate, as he should, as he should have. Like, excuse me, I don't want my sister's killers, who happen to be her sons. That was interesting about the press conference of the Menendez family. They were like, this is the victim's families, Marcy's law. Gascon is excited, being George Gascon, who, if you don't know, I've been talking about him a lot on this channel. He's the DA of Los Angeles. He's 30 points behind in the poll to Nathan Hochman. Polls to Nathan Hochman, excuse me. And he is the most pro-criminal restorative justice, is what he'd call it. I'll call it pro-criminal anti-victim. He got rid of the entire department that notifies victims' families. He's gotten rid of bail, changed the laws. I don't know if he's actually got rid of bail or they passed that another way, but he's gotten rid of all sorts of different enhancements, let out people who've gone on to reoffend. It's been a disaster. There's I think it's like 6 or 7 felony charges. Went over that in another episode against someone high up in his office. So it's been a disaster, and he's got also multiple lawsuits by prosecutors who were, including friend to this show, DA John Lewin, who got demoted for speaking out against his pro-criminal policies. So he's gotten like dozens of lawsuits against him for retaliatory transfer, or I believe or firing. So that's the way that goes. So he was dying. So this George Gascon was dying to meet with the victims' families. If they're the killers' families too, he was dying. It was like the first time George Gascon was dying to meet with a victim's family member. Other times he's getting rid of the entire department that notifies the victim's family when their loved one's killer's up for parole in an effort to keep them out of the parole hearing. Sure works. If you don't know when it is, you can't show up. Keeps them out of the process.
Time of the trial, at least according to the Court of Appeal opinion, one of the brothers said that killing her was, quote, a mercy killing.
The latest move to release the brothers comes after the attorney for the two submitted new evidence he claims helps prove their father sexually abused them. But Cady says that was filed over a year ago, and that District Attorney George Gascon is now using the case to drum up political support as he nears the election.
Mr. Anderson just wants to make sure that whatever decision is made, that it's not politically driven, that it really is done because of the right reasons.
Katie also says against California law, Anderson has been brushed aside by the DA's office, denied input on the fate of his sister's killers. Gascon's office declined to comment on Anderson's lack of involvement.
Mr. Anderson understands that he's not going to be the one who's going to be able to make the final decision, but he wants to make sure that the person who does make that final decision doesn't forget about him.
Now, Anderson's attorney says they sent a letter to George Gascon asking to meet with the DA before he makes any kind of decision on the Menendez brothers. They have not heard back.
Okay, so that's one. But Mr. Anderson seems to be, I mean, these are just like too small. Like, you have to really look for these news stories. Everything else is like, I went out to the opera, to the dinner and opera with my mom, and I was telling her about, because she knows that this is the case that got me interested in true crime, because she remembers a dumb 18-year-old me saying that they should get manslaughter or whatever. I was just mesmerized by Leslie Abramson. It's like watching, like I say, it's like watching a tornado. You're not thinking about how much destruction it's causing. You're just amazed and in awe of the power of it. I just wanted her to win. I wasn't thinking about how these brothers brutally took a life too much. I didn't have too much of a sense of death and how permanent it all is, and how they were full-grown adults living in their parents' house, spoiled. I mean, I love how they're arguing. They're like, we couldn't leave. We couldn't leave. We were under their control totally. When the night of the killing, they're at the Cheesecake Factory and they're at the movies. Somehow Jose let them out long enough to just go to the Cheesecake Factory and the movies, and Lyle Menendez to go to Princeton did he get kicked out in his first year? I think it was his sophomore year for a year and a quarter. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. May have been a shorter amount of time. But he was pissed when he got kicked out for cheating, Lyle Menendez, for plagiarism in a psychology class. Jose was. So that certainly differs from the watching your every move, you're never going to get rid of me, we never thought we could get away from him story. And the mom was filling out Erik's college applications for him. I mean, certainly Jose Menendez was very difficult, hard, what we call today an abusive parent, extremely hard, demanded success and perfection from them. But once you're 18, you make your own way. They just wanted the money and they wanted the freedom. And as far as the grand jury rejecting the idea that the Menendez brothers did it for the money, they already had 2 special circumstances already. They couldn't agree on the third, meaning they couldn't agree that the grand jury couldn't agree, all of them, that they did it for the money. It's hardly different than they all didn't believe that they did it for the money. I mean, come on. Limited grand jury hearing. It's pretty clear to me, but that they did it for the money and the freedom. And I think also and because they wanted to. Why do psychopaths do anything? Because they thought it would be enjoyable and they wanted to give them a sense of power. All right, let's watch. Here's Kitty's brother. Again, here he is himself speaking up about the Menendez brothers. This is very short. Take a listen.
Yesterday, we showed you the group of Menendez family members who were asking for their relatives Lyle and Erik to be released from prison. But one family member was not present, their uncle, the brother of their mother. He is the lone relative who doesn't think that the brothers should be released, and he spoke with Jim Murray.
He's the lone holdout As 24 members of the extended Menendez family called on Erik and Lyle to be set free, this uncle says keep the brothers locked up forever. Milton Anderson, whose sister Kitty Menendez was slain, has especially strong words for his other sister, 92-year-old Joan.
My sister Joan, who is, as far as I'm concerned, a family turncoat. And I didn't realize how close she was with the Menendez brothers.
The truth is, Lyle and Erik were failed by the very people who should have protected them.
Right on, bro. He's like, yep, she's a family turncoat. He's like, I guess I'm out of the loop of these extended third and fourth cousins. And right back there, do you see that that woman with the black hair parted in the middle? That's Garagos' assistant in a like skin tight dress and her cell phone, like a Kim Kardashian wannabe. Was it Bling is the New Black who came in and said that maybe Kim Kardashian's money? Could be. I doubt it, though. I don't know how dedicated Kim Kardashian is to the Menendez brothers. I don't know. I've seen her publicly support them, but could be. I could be wrong. I think it might be Rosie's money. I mean, she's just the gullible dupe. But you remember that Rosie was supposed to be at this press conference? And everyone was like, where's Rosie to Garagos? And he's like, I'll answer that later. Never did. And it turns out, thank you, whoever sent me that. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that I don't have all my ducks in a row for thanking people today. I will make up for it next show, I promise. For sending me the article about Rosie's daughter getting arrested for substances like like the worst scene with an infant baby, like the worst horror scene, like everything found in the baby's room and in her bra. And oh my gosh, this is Chelsea, her eldest daughter. So while Rosie is advocating and boo-hooing publicly about these two convicted killers, spoiled rich kids who killed their parents for their money, her own daughter is neglecting her child and putting that child through a situation that is criminal. I mean, I don't know what the situation is. I remember when Chelsea ran away from home and Rosie O'Donnell said something like, she's so mentally ill, you can't believe anything out of her mouth, which I found incredibly dismissive and off-putting. And then she did give all these interviews like, my mom was a terrible parent. We were raised by nannies and I don't love her. So I don't know what the situation is with those two, but it's almost looks like from an outside, like you can't have success with some of your children and you're going to adopt more children from prison. Lyle Menendez wrote her a letter years ago and Barbara Walters was like, why are you don't write him back. That guy's a manipulator. She knew. She's like, he's dangerous. What are you doing, Rosie? That creepo? Don't write him back. And she took Barbara Walters' sage advice. Also a Sarah Lawrence grad, by the way. Maybe the best advice Barbara Walters ever gave. Anyway, so I was out with my mother and I was telling her all about releasing the Menendez brothers. Back to that story. I'll finish this up. I think I got thrown off track. Told her all about it. She called me up like 2 days later. Do you know that they're going to release the Menendez brothers? And I said, Mom, I told you they were going to do that. What was I doing out at dinner for 20 minutes telling you all about it? She goes, I thought that was just you. Meaning, you always have some story about some guilty person that they're going to release. I just thought it was another one of your, maybe, I don't know what. I'm always right. Years ago, I made an episode, why Serial would get Adnan Syed released, why it would release a killer. That happened. I'm telling you that I feel like this is a done deal. I think he's just waiting for the right timing, the DA, unless there's someone really powerful in the DA's office that we don't know about that he needs for, I don't know, say his next DA run or whatever his next move is. George Gascon, I think he's going to release these brothers purely for political reasons.
Moments after.
Because we are addicted to releasing killers in this country. We are addicted to the exoneration story. It is like crack cocaine to Americans. And if you don't believe it, come spend a week looking through my comment section for a week. How angry people get when you say these guys are guilty. This is a little different. This is more like mitigating circumstances. But you have to remember the Menendez brothers were arguing that their parents were going to kill them. Kill them. Meanwhile, Erik told his therapist, my mother locked her door every night the week before the murders because she had the strange fantasy that her children were planning to kill her. Wow, what a coinky dink. How out of the blue was that paranoia?
After yesterday's press conference came to an end, Joan and family met with the DA's office for 2 hours. Joan, are you happy with the way the meeting went? Now Milton Anderson's lawyer is requesting a meeting with the LA District Attorney's office to hear him out.
There's a huge showing of unity in the family to release the Menendez brothers. But your client says no way.
This was a really incredibly brutal murder where both of the parents had multiple shotgun wounds, and he believes that the sentence was appropriate.
The brothers gunned down their parents as they watched television in their Beverly Hills mansion in 1989, a brutality depicted in the new Netflix hit series.
My sister was still moving, so they pumped more shots into her.
Erik and Lyle claim they committed the slayings to stop their father's relentless sexual abuse. Prosecutors argued they did it to inherit their $14 million family fortune. So what did happen to the family's vast fortune? And if the brothers are released from prison, will they get any of it? Herb Nass, an estate attorney, says that fortune is gone.
Much of that money was spent in legal fees to defend Erik and Lyle.
In the 7 months before they were arrested, the brothers also blew through $700,000 on lavish spending sprees, including Rolex watches.
They spent a lot of...
Right, 3 Rolex watches. And also all these like restaurant franchises. I'll go over what they spent the money on in a second. You're not going to believe it. It's something.
Money on hotels, and one of them bought a restaurant.
Meanwhile, this lone wolf doesn't mind taking on 24 members of his family.
Right. So what you're saying, like when you say you want them out, you're saying that 15 years is enough for each murder. 15 years for Kitty and 15 years for Jose. And, you know, remember the time when going through bad things or hard things, right? That you were applauded for rising above it. Now it's just like a free pass to just act criminally. And why they had to say that their parents were planning on killing them and they were in imminent danger is because our legal system does not acknowledge this as a mitigating factor. Even for a battered woman, you have to be your life has to be in imminent danger. So what stopped the Menendez brothers from just driving on from the Cheesecake Factory to Altoona, PA? Nothing. It's their own greed. I have no sympathy for them. And the more I dig in and revisit this case, the more I'm disgusted by them, frankly. I know that doesn't make me popular. I get it. I get it's a Menendez brothers palooza out there. I'm fully aware. Okay, here it is. What happened to the Menendez brothers' money? So scroll up. This is from all the links of everything I used is in the description of this episode. If you want to check it out yourself. What happened to the Menendez brothers' money? $90 million inheritance. So that's in today's money. This is comingsoon.net. The Menendez brothers expected to inherit $90 million after they murdered their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. Wait, no, that sounds like too much. 90 million. 20, 40, 60, 70. Okay. This is according to an account of one of their brother's friends maybe they're including the money they thought that was in that Swiss bank account. Okay. This is according to one account by one of the brothers' friends per crime library, but Erik and Lyle Menendez were surprised to learn that their inheritance would not be as high as suspected. Even so, they spent a large amount of their wealth on a shopping spree and other substantial purchases after the murder. But since their conviction in 1996, they have been sitting in prison. Here's a breakdown of what happened to the Menendez brothers' money. How did the Menendez brothers lose their money and wealth? Well, all of the Menendez brothers' money has effectively been spent due to extravagant spending, attorney fees, and other expenditures. It should also be mentioned that the California Slayer statute prevents killers from inheriting wealth from their victims, which applies to the beneficiaries to an estate or life insurance policy. While this doesn't apply to justifiable homicides, both Lyle and Erik Menendez were convicted for first-degree murder, meaning that the statute impacts them. However, it took more than several years before the brothers were convicted for their parents' murder. This happened with Marty Tankleff too. He spent a lot of, from killing his parents, his adoptive parents, Arlene and Seymour Tankleff. He's another guilty guy who got out. If you want to check out that episode, it's called Did Keith Raniere's Lawyer Kill His Parents? He went on to represent NXIVM cult leader Keith Raniere in his appeal. Marty Tankleff, he's a lawyer now. Days after the murder, the brothers discovered that they would each only stand to inherit $2 million after loans and taxes were subtracted from their assets. These included the Beverly Hills Mansion estate, another 14-acre home in Calabasas. Excuse me, I have to cough. And over 300 shares Jose owned in live entertainment valued at $20 per share. They had expected that their father had hidden $75 million in a Swiss bank account, but that was never discovered or never existed in the first place. Still, they received $650,000 from Jose's personal life insurance policy. Within a week of their parents' death, the brothers spent about $15,000 on Rolex watches and money clips, in addition to an undisclosed sum on jewelry, expensive clothing, and cars. The brothers then rented adjoining apartments in Marina del Rey, California, at more than $2,000 a month. Lyle hired bodyguards and purchased a Porsche 911 Carrera for $64,000, while Erik traded his Ford Escort for a Jeep Wrangler. Dreaming of owning a restaurant, Lyle also bought Chuck's Spring Street Cafe for over $500,000, renaming it Mr. Buffalo's, and wanting to open a second location for the franchise. However, his lack of business experience eventually led to the venture losing money. Meanwhile, Erik decided to become a professional tennis player. paying $60,000 a year for a coach and traveling extensively at expensive hotels. Yeah, Dominic Dunn talks about, like, I believe it was Dominic Dunn, like how they were having their blood tested and they're like these incredibly precise, all these kind of medical tests to get them in peak condition, like they do for professional athletes, how much oxygen they use and stuff for their tennis playing. By 1994, they had spent nearly $10.8 million based on records recovered by the LA Times. The amount was so great that they would stand to inherit nothing after taxes and unpaid debts. So while it's unclear how much money they were able to inherit before their prison sentence, and Leslie Abramson asked for $1 million for their first trial, the family was like, oh, we don't have $1 million. And she's like, well, get it or the kids will fry. She always called them boys or kids. Something like to that effect. Also, whether the California Slayer statute applied retroactively in the case, very little of the brothers' wealth remains today. So that is that. Thanks, Doris, for becoming a new member. Bling is the new black. Nice to see you. Kim K has been very outspoken. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I've seen some of the things that she said, but maybe I missed a lot of them. And she certainly has more money than Rosie, sure. But rich people never see it like that. They always act like they're poor. Rosie, why I thought it was Rosie is because I would think that what I understand, she's one of the more generous ones. I know that Kim Kardashian does some of the campaigning for a lot of the cases that I've talked about on this channel. Purvis Payne, Julius Jones, Rodney Reed, some of the most disturbing cases and the guiltiest killers. And so either she is so deluded and cannot put two brain cells together, which may be correct, and thinks they're actually innocent, or she comes from an ideology, which I think might be more likely, where she believes that no one should do more than 15 or 20 years in prison for even the worst crimes. And that is the ideology of George Gascon, who is the DA of Los Angeles. So if they get out, and when they get out, when these kind of people get out, the press always presents it like an exoneration, which is going to be interesting with the Menendez brothers because they admitted they did it. But what it would do will be to cement this myth. I feel it's a myth that they were abused by Jose. Kitty, it just vanishes. That allegation vanishes into thin air. So does anyone have any comments or questions before I move on? Might take a short break and come right back. Roberta JBZ says, Roberta, I'm 2 hours from the Menendez brothers. I know a bunch and oh, you do? Because you live 2 hours away? What did it do? Just it flew through the breeze? I thought it was a family secret. I thought no one knew. JBZ. They were abused for many, many years. The news flew in the breeze to you? All right. I am going to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
A glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe or become a patron for exclusive content. If if you are so inclined. Have something to say, shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it on air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be glib or dismissive, but I've just watched, so many of these campaigns. And I was a Menendez supporter. I know they're very persuasive. If you have to believe the Menendez brothers, then you have to believe that their parents were trying to kill them and that they were abused by both parents. You can't really pick and choose what you believe in their story. And Roy Rosello, I don't believe his story. I don't know what the connection with the Menendez brothers is, or Mark Garagos. But wouldn't it be helpful to, if you've been in prison for 34 years, if you found someone from the Menudo, anyone, it would help his documentary, certainly sell his documentary to have a story like this. He never has to be cross-examined about any of it, and it would help your client. So maybe if you had, if you're Roy Rosello and you had, like a relative in prison who needed a lawyer, or you might be promised some documentary money or some book money when they get out, which really never comes through. They usually run on those promises for signing an affidavit and telling a story in a documentary. Wouldn't that be helpful to your clients? Watch A Murder in the Park. Watch the behind the scenes of how these exoneration stories are done. It is like watching the sausage be made, and it's never talked about in the true crime community. Soon as someone gets out, it's like all the evidence goes out the window that convicted them, and we believe these narratives that are totally untested. And by untested, these people never have to, meaning, where did the DNA come from? And I'm talking about specifically in one case, in Stephen Avery's case. What was the chain of custody? Let's discuss it. And why didn't they charge the other guy if his DNA is a match? Why did it just get dropped like it never happened? I think maybe that one, these crimes get left so often like no one did it. Just no one did it. There's a case I talked about in Southern California where Innocence Project lawyer had a prison romance with a guy who was doing life without parole to get him to confess and take the blame for a client's murder in exchange for the promise of the civil suit money when they sued the state for wrongful conviction, which all this happened, and they got the second largest payout in San Francisco history until they didn't pay him. And he's like, hey, I lied for this guy, for this lawyer. She knew I was lying to get her client out. They never paid me. And she had this prison romance in addition to convince me to take the fall for this guy because I had nothing to lose. Just like in the Central Park 5 case, Mateus Reyes had nothing to lose and everything to gain by saying, I did it all alone. And if you ever see that interrogation, that's bizarre. Doesn't even make any sense. No one who tended to Tricia Melee thought that her wounds were created by one person. And then you have the congruent confessions of four confessions and admissions from the 5, and then you have like the peripheral, like 3 periphery people, all consistent about what happened that night in the park, and all the other people they attacked, which doesn't get talked about. All right, don't let me get worked up here. Let's take a look at, people are dropping off at a rapid rate. Let's look at Erik Menendez's cross-examination here. He gets caught. His memory gets extremely hazy during cross-examination. Let's take a listen.
Personal effects of your parents were taken from the Beverly Hills house.
So he testified in direct about finding his mother's diary, and now it's changed in cross to not a diary, but a diary type book where a message was written. And I think it's really interesting the other things he finds in his father's home. He says he finds amongst his father's affairs and what he does with it. Take a listen together.
Is that correct?
That Detective Zoller didn't take any, know.
Overall. Then, Mr. Menendez, you and your brother had access to all the family photographs that were accumulated over nearly 2 decades of your family. Overall. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had access to everything before and after they died.
You've indicated that you wanted to get everything your mother ever wrote and collect those so you could see what she thought?
No, I never indicated that.
Did you testify to that just this morning?
No, what I was saying is that I thought she had something in the computer, and I desperately wanted to find out what was in the computer because of how sad I felt afterwards. I just wanted to know what was really going on with her, since I didn't understand her anymore.
All right, so I take a little bit of liberties with my Menendez song. So they never rewrote the will, but they did hire, or I believe they hired a computer expert to break into the computer and erase a file with his will, ostensibly rewriting it, because he was going to write them out of the will. So if Kitty died first, he would get everything, and vice versa. No Menendez brothers everywhere, and they had been used to the good life. I don't know, up to a certain extent, he was very strict, and he did demand that they succeed. And it seems like Lyle Menendez took on that ideology himself. Hold on, let me get this quote. He wrote a letter in the early part of their confinement. During the early part of his confinement, Lyle spent a great deal of the time on the telephone. He spoke to the manager of Mr. Buffalo's often. This is from Crime Library, written by Rachel Pergament. Okay. He spent a great deal of his time on the telephone, Lyle did. He spoke to the manager of Mr. Buffalo's often, and this caused other prisoners to complain about the number and length of his telephone calls. Shortly after the sheriff's deputy, after Lyle's ankle chains almost cut through, they conducted an inspection of both Lyle's and Erik's cell. They found a 17-page letter from Erik to Lyle, along with some notes in Erik's cell. The notes describe plans to travel to South America. Donna Adelson, anyone? And then to the Middle East. They were planning to break out and go to non-extradition countries. The deputies also found a drawing of a building with stairwells and doors. Deputies tried to match it to the courthouses that Lyle had been in, but could not find a building that the drawing resembled. In a letter to Erik, Lyle says he would never testify against him. Lyle also gives Erik advice that Lyle believes Jose would have given him. Lyle wrote, quote, "I am not an ordinary person. I do not see things in terms of manslaughter and life terms. I see only win, loss, honor, and dishonor. Dad is watching, and I will not disappoint him a second time. Yeah, I'm sure he feels really disappointed that you murdered him. What is the disappointment? Getting thrown out of Princeton or the burglary spree you went on with Erik before you murdered both your parents? Which is it? You burglaring all the neighbors' homes and your father having to pay them off for the items that strangely never came back? Or is he disappointed by murdering him brutally with a shotgun and mom? So I will not disappoint him a second time, or mom, by giving up and having their deaths be in vain. So that sounds very Lyle Menendez-ish to me. I mean, Jose Menendez-ish to me, no?
Now, besides the computer, were there other writings belonging to your mother or generated by your mother?
I didn't know that, but I found that out later.
Did you know that your mother had a diary?
Yes.
How did you know that?
I found that diary.
Now, in fact, it was in your bedroom after the killings.
Yes.
And you read that diary?
Yes, I did.
Nice to see you, my father's alibi. Nice to see you. Nice to see you here. Thanks for becoming a member.
Do you know where it is, that diary is now?
I have no idea. I assume my grandmother has it. Was right after my grandmother came in, and she sort of took over and took possession of everything and sorted it out. And I tried to do some of it with her, but I didn't do that much with her.
Now, this diary of your mother, did it cover the last year of her life? Approximately.
Actually, what the diary was, it was in a diary type of thing, but it was just a letter. It was in a little booklet, but it was just a letter from my mother to my father. It was a very sad letter.
Where is that?
Overall, I have no idea where it is.
Now, this diary, let's get back to the diary for a minute. Mm-hmm. Did you see a diary that your mother wrote expressing her love for you and your brother that was comprised of about 50 to 75 pages?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overall. No, I definitely never saw a diary like that. When I was in 1986, I saw.
Look at his acting on the stand. Shocked. A diary? No, I never saw any of that. And sometimes when Lester Kuriyama, the prosecutor, comes up to talk to him, he kind of recoils and pretends he's like cowering, like he isn't to his father, like this meek act. It's just ridiculous. And he gets caught in, I mean, I don't know how much we're going to get through. Maybe I know we're, can maybe move to a few good parts, but I thought this was really interesting about the stuff that was found in the diary, his mother's diary. And of course, the police found no diary.
A suicide letter from my mother to my father, in which she said that she loved us. That made me call Lyle and ask Lyle to please talk to Mom, because I didn't want her to kill herself. But I never saw a diary 50 to 70 pages.
Now, if there were
I didn't want her to kill herself because I wanted to kill her later. I didn't want her. Please, Mom, don't kill yourself, because you're really ruining all the plans I have for killing you later on with Dad. So caring, isn't he? So thoughtful, that Erik.
A diary in your room several days after the killings.
Of 50 to 70 pages?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I can hear the Menendez brothers supporters screaming, "How dare you laugh? How dare you laugh at these poor lamb victims, convicted double murderers of their parents. Some of the worst kinds of crimes." Even the prisoners were like, "We hate you. Go away." If you listen to Michael Francis, he's like, every time I walked out with, I think it was Lyle or Erik, I can't remember which one, they thought I was the other brother, and they were like, "I'm going to kill you. You killed your parents." The prisoners were like, no, too low on the honor code. And of course, the Menendez supporters were saying, well, they didn't know about what Jose was doing. They would be heroes if they, come on. So, have you ever heard of the word streetwise? Phrase streetwise? Get streetwise. Be able to sharpen your BS meter. I certainly need to sharpen mine. Mine's not sharp enough, apparently. But even I can tell that this is some BS.
How would that diary have gotten there if you know?
Objection calls for speculation.
Would have stayed.
Now, this diary that you testified you saw after the killings, how many pages long was that?
It was a long letter. I'd say about 10, maybe 15 pages. It was a small book about this one. It had a rainbow and a unicorn on the front, and a little gold lock. And I always wanted to know where it was, but it had disappeared from my bedroom, so I didn't know where it was.
This diary disappeared from your bedroom?
Yeah, once my grandmother came into the house, she pretty much took most of the stuff.
When was it that you first saw the diary that you just testified about?
After my parents died.
How long after?
I think before I went back to New Jersey for the funeral, so within the first week.
You left for New Jersey either the 25th or the 26th of August, is that right?
Is the 26th Saturday? Yeah.
I believe so.
I left on Saturday.
So before the 26th, you had found this diary of your mother's, correct?
Yes, I had gone into my mother's room when all my relatives were there. Everyone was in the house. I had been in my dad's room and my mom's side and found the diary.
Okay, what day was that, if you recall?
I assume it was before I left to New Jersey, so Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, somewhere.
Okay,
around.
well, Thursday, the 24th is the day that you bought the money clip and the Rolex. So let's take it from there. Was it before that or after that?
It might have been before. I really don't have a great recollection of what happened in the aftermath. I remember I was at the Bel Air Hotel, and I remember that there were a lot of relatives and that we were at the house, and a lot of things happened, but I don't remember an exact sequence.
You testified, though, that you found this diary, and did you bring it to your room so you could
I found it, and I was crying because it was so sad, and I brought it to my room and just started reading it. It wasn't really a diary. It said "Dear Jose" at the top, and so it wasn't a diary, but it was in a diary type of book.
And did it talk about you and your brother and how much your mother loved you and your brother?
No, it didn't mention Lyle and I in that one.
At all?
Not at all.
So if there were such a diary, that wouldn't be the one that you saw?
Objection calls for
I don't know what diary you're...
Objection sustained. The answer is correct.
Mr. Menendez, was there any other diaries that you saw besides the one that you've described as 10-page long diary with the rainbow on the front of it?
Was there any other diary? No,
Yes.
not that I saw. I'm sure she had tons of diaries. She probably had my diaries too. I didn't see them.
Now, if she had your diaries too, would those diaries have been in the house when she was killed?
Unless she destroyed them, yes.
Did you ever find those?
No, I didn't. I went into my father's room partly because...
Okay, so this is why, get ready for this whopper. Get ready for this. Is everybody ready for this whopper? I hope everybody's ready. Listen up for this. This is something a listener, and I'm sorry that I'm not remembering which one, but get ready for this whopper. Pointed out before. So he went into his father's room and found some interesting stuff, and this is what he did with it. Take a listen.
I knew there were a lot of magazines and videos that I didn't want anyone to find. And I went into my mother's room just in case there was. Actually, what started me going into my mother's room was I found a tape recorder.
Okay, wait a minute. You talked about magazines and videos that you didn't want anyone to find?
Yes.
Of yours?
No, they were in my father's room. They were in a box, and they had a lot of magazines, gay magazines and gay pornos, and I removed them from the room because I knew the relatives were going to be around, and I thought they might be in there.
Okay, so about those. Wait, hold on. Let's find out what he does with it. Then we're going to talk about this in a second. Okay, hold on.
What did you do with those?
I put them in my closet.
Oh, so if they were found in your closet, you would have taken it from your dad's room and put it in your closet.
They weren't found in my closet. I gave them to my cousin Henry and to my cousin Andy, and told them to get rid of them. I didn't want my grandmother to find them. I didn't want my relatives to find them. I didn't want anyone to find them.
Right. So I had to bring them back to my closet. This adult material, gay adult material. Then I had to distribute it. I couldn't give it to just like one cousin. I couldn't just throw it in the trash. I couldn't throw it in the trash. I had to distribute it amongst my cousins. Strangely, Andy Cano, who was the recipient of this letter, right? And Lyle's mail was intercepted. And he was asking witnesses to, at least one witness, to lie for him. I thought it was two, but I have proof of one so far. It's so hard to bring this stuff up. Going through the trial transcripts, I don't know if both of them, I know one witness came in to the second trial. Curiously, was the son, I believe, of someone involved in the Billionaires Boys Club killing. Talk about that in another episode. And asking witnesses to lie for him. So I think this letter that's been bandied about that was dated 8 months before the murder, why Andy Cano, who testified, Erik's cousin testified, only one who testified about this kind of abuse, why didn't just bring the letter? Would be the best evidence back then. What I think that letter was, and why he was pen paling with his cousin back then. He didn't say, I mailed this material to my cousin. He said, I gave it to my cousin, right? One cousin, then another relative is distributing it. Can't throw it away. So what I think he did is he was writing a letter from jail or prison. I think they were housed in prison before the first trial, telling him how to lie and trying to make evidence. Maybe it was passed through Leslie Abramson. Maybe it was passed another way, but there was no stamped envelope date. Haven't seen that. 8 months before the murder, we just have a date. So maybe they knew they were going to get busted on it and decide not to use it. And that's why it was found. That's my thought on it. It's also very vague, but it's vague in a way that, like, this is sort of what I would have told you type thing. Dad's coming in at night and coming in at night and yelling. I don't know.
Mr.
Lyle told his girlfriend, she got on the stand, that's why they killed their parents when they were awaiting trial, and she broke up with him. She was like, no way. She knew him. And she knew all about the wig, which is supposed to be the Pandora's box in this case that brought out all the family secrets.
Menendez, have you had homosexual relations with anyone other than, as you've indicated, your brother?
Objection, Your Honor, to the form of the question. Objection to the subject matter.
Okay.
Okay, so he was caught in prison. I know I'm breaking the hearts of the Menendez groupies everywhere, but Erik was caught, and of course, there's nothing wrong with being gay. If this were straight porn, I would have the same reaction to it. That he said he moved from his dad's closet to his room and then distributed it amongst his cousins. But in prison, awaiting trial, according to the prosecutor, now, of course, the Menendites will be like the Menendi, as Pamela Bazanik calls them, the prosecutor in the first trial, says one day Erik was caught in a embrace with another prisoner. It happened when Erik was being escorted to the shower with another inmate. The deputy sheriff guarding them propped the door to the shower room open. Okay, excuse me. And then went into another room instead of watching Erik and the other inmate. When the guard returned a few minutes later, the door was almost closed, and Erik was sitting in a chair with his back to the door. The other inmate was on his knees in front of Erik. When the guard asked what was going on, both Erik and the inmate stood up and looked embarrassed. So I thought that was a funny detail. And I can continue on. There, Leslie Abramson's style of objecting is so, I feel like, she's just knew all the tricks, like very disruptive. Whenever Lester Kuriyama got a rhythm going and Erik was in real trouble, she'd, object. There's one day, I think the end of the day ends early here because one lawyer has a family emergency. I would bet that was Leslie, but I obviously couldn't know because he was getting slaughtered, Erik, on the stand. So she wanted to give him a time before the next time that he had to get up. When I was at the...
Mr. Menendez, would it be fair to say that you've had...
When I was at Nexium hearing, Claire Bronfman was finally asked by the judge a question that he insisted she answer and not her lawyer, and she fainted. And they had to bring in a gurney, and the whole hearing was canceled. And she was the healthiest looking person I've ever seen being pulled away on a stretcher and the happiest. So it's not unknown, it's not unusual to do these kind of theatrics when you're stuck on the stand and you're getting caught in a lot of lies. Hold on one second. So okay, so let's move forward to how they purchased the gun. I thought this was really interesting too. And you can see how little watched it is, this part where they're getting caught in lies. But here he's talking about, so they used they stole a friend's ID and bought these shotguns with their friends at the Big Five sporting goods store. And Lester Kuriyama asked all these very specific questions about how they bought the guns. And they said, we wanted to buy these handguns and they wouldn't let us take them out of the store. And apparently those that were in the courtroom said that this was some real goosebump moments in the Menendez trial. Let's take a listen.
Out on the tennis court.
Half hour, maybe half hour, not that long.
Did you have a bucket of balls there that you could just hit like 100 balls and then go to the other side of the net?
Sorry, I'm a minute behind. My apologies.
We better get going. Something like that.
This is early in the morning?
8, 9 o'clock.
Now, when he said, "Are you ready? We better get going," what did that mean to you?
I had a feeling it meant go get the guns.
Had you that night discussed what kind of guns you would get?
Not really, just any handgun. I didn't know really what.
Now, You were familiar with handguns, weren't you?
No, sir.
Had you ever heard of different types of handguns?
Not really. Not really.
When you discussed the guns with the handguns with your brother, did you discuss, well, let's get a 357?
Did you not, Lester Kuriyama, did you not just see my pastel sweater, my white, pure cable knit crew neck sweater, and my gingham buttoned up to the top shirt? I know nothing about guns. I'm just a tennis playing, preppy, rich kid. I didn't know anything about guns. I just knew I needed a gun to protect my life because both my parents were trying to kill me. I'm too young to know about guns at 18. Just got my driver's license. So, I mean, just this is something that Keith Raniere did too. He wore like these, I always said, you know, I put out a picture when I was at his trial. I was like, I called my friend. I said, oh my gosh, he's doing a Menendez. He's got the inoffensive pastel sweater, though his were V-neck, I believe, not crew neck, sweater going with the collared shirt. Keith Raniere, the cult leader of NXIVM. So to make him look like he is the nonviolent, inoffensive, gentleman sweater. So I said, can you just put a picture of his head on Lyle or Erik Menendez's body? And she said it to me. So when I took out my phone from the phone check, I could put it out on Twitter.
Or let's get a 9mm.
Definitely not.
No? So you didn't know much about guns?
No.
So when your brother said, let's get going, you knew he meant we got to get the guns, we got to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Is that right? What did you then do?
I sort of said, I got a tournament coming up. I have things to do. I don't really want to do that.
And then what happened?
And then he said, Erik, he convinced me, not really convinced me, he just told me that this was serious and that this may be the next morning, but this was still real. And I said, all right.
And so did you just go as you were attired at that moment to your car, or what happened?
No, I went up to my room to get my wallet. I had some money, and I had some more money in a little book case that I kept money in there.
How did you enter into the main house that morning?
I don't remember.
You don't remember which door you went through?
No, I may simply have just gone through the living room door. I'm not really sure.
The living room, through the front of the house? Toward the front of the house?
No, the back of the house.
The living room door that's comes out into the side yard?
Yes.
So you...
Okay, Erik Menendez's memory is going to start getting really, really hazy here. Kitty's, nice to see you, 1993. What is your analysis of the relationship between Erik and Lyle? I think they're psychopaths, and I agree with Dominic Dunn. And as you just heard, the testimony, I think it was incestuous in some ways. Because it's not really about sex with psychopaths. Hard to explain. It's just about sensation and power, I think. I mean, if I can put it like that. And the more I see of the trial now, when I was younger, I thought Erik was the less dangerous one because I just think he's the craftier and smarter one. I think Lyle is bold and gets in trouble. And, I think they're just as criminal. I think just Erik people don't suspect him as much because he's quiet and knows how to manipulate with his affect. I mean, so I don't really think they have a sexuality. I mean, you're talking about, maybe more like a preference. But my experience in looking at psychopaths, they tend to be equal opportunity. So it's not really a sexuality. It's just like, it's a means of gaining control, and they don't attach. So it's not about attachment. It's just about power, control, and sensation because they're so bored. and they need constant stimulation.
You recall that?
No, that's what I usually did when I came from the guest house, though.
Was the door simply, was it unlocked? Did you have to use any key?
I don't remember going through the door, so I don't remember what was locked and what was unlocked.
So at some point you entered into your house and you went up to your bedroom.
Yes.
And you got some money.
Yeah, I grabbed my wallet and I grabbed some money, and I met
How much
Lyle.
money did you grab?
I had somewhere around $300, and so I took everything that I had.
And did your brother have a discussion with you that night that you should go and grab your cash because we need it to buy the guns?
That night?
Yes.
You mean the night before?
The night before.
I don't remember that.
So you on your own decide that you'd go up to your room and get your cash?
We may have talked about it Friday morning. He may have. I just don't remember.
Now your brother.
Right. Here's his memory. Listen to how many times he says, we may have done this. I may have done that. He's gotten trapped in so many lies. And he's about to get trapped in a whopper here.
I had a credit card during that period of time, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He, at some point, did you learn that he had also brought cash with him?
Yes.
After you went upstairs to your bedroom and you got your cash and you came down, did you tell your brother, I got $300, how much do you have? Did you have that kind of discussion?
I may very well have. I don't remember.
Did you at some point decide where you were going to go make your purchase?
Yes.
Okay. Did you look in a phone book or how did you do that?
No, we figured we'd just go over to the sporting goods store.
Okay. And I believe your brother testified you drove over to the Santa Monica Big Five store?
Yeah, it was on the one right across from the 405, right on the other side of the 405.
Which street was that on?
Santa Monica, I believe.
And so, isn't there a Big Five in Beverly Hills?
No.
There isn't?
No.
So was that the closest Big Five?
Closest Big Five that I knew of.
So whose car did you go in?
Mine.
And who drove?
My brother.
Was that common for your brother to drive your car when you went out together?
Yes.
Okay, so did your brother know where this Big Five in Santa Monica was? Or did you?
I'm not sure. I may very well have told him. I don't remember.
So at some point you went to the Big Five in Santa Monica.
Yes.
And you took a look at handguns.
Yes.
Now, what kind of guns were you considering? What kind of handguns were you and your brother thinking about getting? I mean, did you have any idea? Or did you just look at the guns that were in this display and say, well, that one looks good, that one looks good? Or how did you do that?
I remember asking the man behind the counter, which are real and which are BB guns. Okay. You know, if these are real guns or if these are BB guns, and he told me just a little bit about that. This is a real gun. This is a BB gun. And
okay, so you knew nothing about handguns, really? Really,
only what what anyone knows. I didn't know much about it.
Did he show you? Did he show you 22s and 25s and 38s, or was there a pretty big variety of guns that you had? Since you didn't know anything about them, really, did he explain the different sorts of guns kind of to you? Since I guess it was apparent that you and your brother didn't know anything about guns.
No, we didn't.
I think that's compound.
Objection sustained.
Okay.
Raise a question, please.
Now, when you were looking at these guns, was your brother right there with you?
Yes, sir.
You weren't trying to hide anything?
No.
No. So he was right up there with you at the counter looking at these handguns?
Yes.
Were they in a glass case or were they up on a wall?
They were in the glass case.
Okay. And as you're looking at these guns, could you see a big variety of guns?
I remember seeing different guns in the shelf. I think it was a 2-shelf container. I believe so. And there were guns on the top. That's what I remember seeing.
Now, these were handguns that you were seeing?
Okay. Yes.
Now, was the top shelf handguns as well as the bottom shelf?
I can't remember that clearly, but I remember looking through the case at the different guns that he had there.
As you were looking through the case of these handguns, did you have any discussion with your brother that That one looks pretty good. Or anything like that?
I may have. We were talking with the man. The three of us were just talking. I don't really remember.
Was there any other worker up there?
So excuse me for having my air conditioner on. It's like I just like sitting here sweating. I look at the thing. It's like 80 something degrees in here. I'm like, what is going on? Anne from Croatia asked, can psychopaths be rehabilitated? Great question. No, they can't. Somehow I think they thank you for pointing that out. Or I felt like you were asking me that because you knew they can't be rehabilitated. There's no cure for it. And, it's really interesting that the Menendez brothers supporters argue that they won't kill again because they killed the two people they were angry at. And has anyone seen the Dear Zachary documentary about Andrew Bagby and his killer, Canadian woman? And she was let out on bail because the judge surmised that she had already killed the person she was angry at. And I don't want to give any spoiler alerts in that, but it didn't end well. Let's just put it that way. It may be, who knows if they won't victimize someone financially now that they don't have the cash for the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. Although maybe they'll write books and get what, murder will pay, just like it paid for Amanda Knox at $30,000 a pop for a speech and $2.5 million for book deals. And maybe they'll make their fortune from literally from this killing. We don't have Son of Sam laws anymore in a lot of states, thanks to the movie Goodfellas. So when they wanted to make a movie about Henry Hill, they got rid of a lot of those Son of Sam laws, meaning you can't profit off a crime.
Was there any female workers, or was it just a man that you were talking to?
I just remember the man.
Do you recall what he looked like?
I have no idea what he looked like.
Okay. In any event, do you recall that he showed you certain kind of handguns? For example, did he say this 9mm automatic is a pretty good gun?
I don't remember. I don't think so. Okay. I think we were just talking about what the guns were, and we asked if we could buy one now.
Okay.
Something to that extent.
Let me ask you this. When you went in to buy the guns, did you just ask the man to tell you about guns since you didn't know anything about it?
No, I remember specifically just looking at them and then asking if these were real.
Right. And what did he say?
He pointed out which ones were and which ones were not. I believe the ones that were not were over to the right. The pellet guns or the BB guns, I believe they were over to the right, and the real ones were more in the center where I was. That's my recollection. I could be wrong.
Do you recall do you know the difference between an automatic and a revolver? Handguns. Like the revolver would be the kind that you see on Western movies, and
yes,
the cylinder. Did you see those as well as the other kind that you see in the more recent movies? The what they call an automatic.
I don't remember seeing revolvers. I don't remember. I specifically remember seeing the ones that did not have a revolver.
Okay.
Does anyone know what happened to Lester Kuriyama? Is he still with us? This is a brilliant cross. You'll see in a second, but you can sense that Erik feels like he's being pulled into a trap. So the longer this goes on, and they ask him to describe, what did you see? Oh, the case had two different, what did he say? 2 different shelves, and this, an old man helped us, and, goes through it. But as he starts to go through it, you hear more and more, I recall, I believe, I think this happened. Because he's getting the feeling he's getting pulled into a trap, and he is. There's a part in my interview with John Lewin, he said, there's nothing better as a prosecutor. How does he put it? He goes, you want to make the witness think that they're the snake and you're the mouse, and you reverse it. He says it much in a funnier way, and he goes, I think it might go on to another metaphor with a cliff, running them off a cliff. I can't even remember, but basically you want to make them think that they're in control and that they're winning and that they're gaming up until the point that you drop the bomb on them and you blow up any bit of credibility that they had on the stand. However, Leslie Abramson, I really feel won this. She didn't ever feel like it was a win, but this hung jury for them. Just touching them, pulling her theatrics, her cross-examinations were brutal. I mean, to make Kitty's brother look like a greedy greedy relative who just wanted the Menendez brothers in jail so he could get the fortune. I mean, come on. Instead of a grieving brother. Everyone loved Kitty. It's Jose who had the bad reputation.
This is again on the witness stand. Would you state your name again for the record, please?
The first question asked by Mrs.
What did I do? My apologies. I'll get back to where we were. How did I do that? Maybe I'm going to go queue up and take a break so you guys don't have to sit through this. I'll be right back. My apologies. I got so excited talking about it. I just spazzed out. I spazzed out on the keyboards, guys. Someone telling me where Lester Kuriyama is? Googled it. Bossy Texas chick. Hey, nice to see you. Googled it. Roberta and Lester Kuriyama became a defense. Oh, no. Became a defense. I always get disappointed. And that he received death threats for grilling Erik so harshly. Oh, no. I'd love to interview him. I thought it was epic. Oh, I hate when they become defense attorneys. We need good prosecutors. Yeah, I thought he was great in this. I mean, who could handle? They had a horrible Jerome Oziel, like that guy with 1 million skeletons in his closet. Like that's the luckiest piece of luck for the Menendez brothers that Erik Menendez confessed to that guy with 1 zillion skeletons in his closet. So they neutralized him, and they were really rehearsed and prepared. As I think Leslie Abramson at one point in this trial objects to the fact that she says her clients were prepared for this cross, but certainly they were. All right, I'm going to cue this up. I'll be right back in a minute. My apologies for spazzing out on that. I'll be right back. Don't go.
A glass of wine. Roberta will be back in no time. This podcast is listener supported, so smash that like button and subscribe or become a patron for exclusive content if you are so inclined. Have something to say? Shoot Roberta a super chat. She will do her best to read it on air without delay. Now Roberta's back and ready to put the true back in true crime. Here's Roberta.
Okay. All right. I'm back. I can't wait. I can't wait for the tune out of the break. We got to get back to this epic cross-examination. Okay, here he's asking the difference between a revolver and a handgun. Here we go.
You know, handguns. Like the revolver would be the kind that you see on Western movies, and
yes,
the cylinder. Did you see those as well as the other kind that you see in the more recent movies? The what they call an automatic.
I don't remember seeing revolvers. I don't remember. I specifically remember seeing the ones that did not have a revolver.
Okay. Do you recall the man giving you advice on what kind of caliber to get?
I just don't recall.
At some point, you picked out a handgun that you thought was appropriate. Is that right?
Yes.
And did your brother also pick out one?
I suppose. I don't remember.
Was it You suppose, but you don't remember. Was your brother right next to you at this period of time?
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, was it a...
Mr. Kuriyama, have you not heard that I am an amnesiac? Have you not heard that I don't remember anything? Have you not heard that my entire trip to the Big Five sporting goods store has been wiped out of my memory?
Silver, stainless steel silver gun, or was it the blue steel type of gun that you decided on eventually, the handgun?
Blue steel?
There are some guns, I suppose, that you saw in this glass case that were like a silver color, and others that were like what they call a blue steel, or it looks almost like a black color gun. Do you recall which kind you decided on?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall the caliber that you decided on?
I really don't. It wasn't as soon as we said that one looks good and that type of thing. We talked about, could we get it now? How do you go about buying it? And that's when he told us we had to. There was some sort of a waiting period, and so it wasn't an in-depth discussion.
Now, had your brother also selected one at that point when you selected yours? Did he select? Did you indicate to him that you needed to buy two, not just one?
Yes.
Okay. So at that point, had your brother also said, that one looks good to me?
I just don't remember.
You recall your brother's testimony that about the guns?
Not
at
really.
This Big Five store in Santa Monica?
No, I don't.
You don't remember his testimony on that?
I remember him testifying that we went there. I don't really remember what he said about it.
Do you recall his testimony on September 17th, volume 88, at page 14,583? Okay. Do you recall that your brother testified in his examination that basically you were actually in the process of buying the guns when you're told you couldn't leave the store without the guns at that point? You had already made your decisions as to which kinds of guns you wanted to buy.
Why don't you rephrase the question?
Okay, Your Honor.
Couldn't leave the store without the guns?
Yes. Mr. Menendez, do you recall your brother stating in his testimony that you had basically selected the guns, you're ready to purchase the guns, and then you found out that you couldn't leave the stores with the guns because you had the 15-day waiting period?
I don't remember him testifying to that, but that's roughly what happened.
That's right. Now, you're telling the truth about everything in this case, aren't you?
I'm telling the truth to the best that I can.
Okay. And even though you've lied in the past, you're telling the truth now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Did you truly go to the Santa Monica Big Five store on the morning of August 18th to buy these handguns?
Definitely.
And
without a doubt, I did.
You and Lyle did?
Yes.
And you and Lyle actually looked in this case and you selected these guns and you were told you couldn't leave the store with those handguns because there's a 15-day wait?
Yes.
Mr. Menendez, did you know that Big Five stopped carrying handguns in March of 1986?
No, I don't know that.
They said this was just like a goosebump moment in the courtroom right here. Like he just went through what it looked like, how many shelves there were, what he saw. How anyone believed him at all after this is amazing. This is what a bad witness looks like on the stand. You know, I was giving my brother directions to the Big Five store, but you know, I can't remember. I can't recall. Oh, I can't recall if I gave him directions or not. That's what it was about. You remember when you give someone directions? It's so laborious. Turn here, stop here. It's not one memory, it's many memories together. would stick in your mind, especially if you're buying guns to kill your parents. And he's going to just do his all shucks act here. Oh, shucks. I thought it was. Gee, Mr. Kuriyama, I thought it was Big Five. I can't recall. I'm just so broken and traumatized.
Mr. Kuriyama, there were guns there, and we did look at him, and he did say we could not carry him anymore.
Now,
yeah, just there's a huge difference between buying shotguns and handguns. Big difference between buying sporting guns and handguns and looking at them and not knowing the difference between BB guns and handguns. Big difference. Mr. Kuriyama, they're all guns. You expect me to know what a gun is, what a handgun is, what the difference between a handgun? Although that's why it started out like that. Do you know the difference between a handgun and another kind of gun and this kind of gun? Yeah. So you can't say, oh, I just grouped it all in the category of guns. Maybe they were all BB guns and I thought they were handguns and we bought BB guns by mistake. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Story's ridiculous. I'm going to wrap this up soon. We've been going for almost 2 hours.
After you went to this Big Five in Santa Monica, what happened?
We left.
Where did you go?
We went down to San Diego.
Why did you go down to San Diego?
We were just driving. We didn't know what to do at that point.
At that point, you knew that you couldn't buy handguns. You had to wait 15 days, correct?
Yes.
And you decided to buy shotguns, didn't you?
No, we hadn't. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what we were going to be able to do.
At some point, how did you find out that you could buy rifles or shotguns rather than handguns?
There was a store that we went to that we decided to go into, and they had all these guns on the rack behind the man up there, and we were talking to the man about it.
Is it your understanding that you have to state that here that you weren't intending to hide your identity, that you were ready, willing, and able to buy these handguns that day, and that because you couldn't wait 15 days, you bought the shotguns? You have testified that you had a valid driver's license, correct? Under a different name? It had your own picture on it with a false address?
I don't know if it was a driver's license. It was an ID, I believe.
No, it's not a driver's license. It's an ID. This guy has like 1 million fake IDs too to get into clubs and dance. Oh. How are you guys feeling? Do you want to go on a little longer? Or do you want to end it here? I'm cool with ending it here, but if you guys want to go on, we can go on and hear about his zillion IDs. All right, I'll wait it out. Bossy Texas chick, I know you'll be straight with me. Go on. Susan says go on. All right, you want to hear about his IDs? Anyone else want to weigh in? All right, Tater Bug. All right, says go on. All right, here we go. It's your party. All right, got to hear about these. Listen to all the fake IDs this cat had. I was just starting to loathe them with every ounce of my being. The more I get into the Menendez brothers. And I have to say, I have to give it to Leslie Abramson for not joining in on this PR palooza and saying, no petition's going to release them. She's got to know that's untrue. These campaigns do work, or they wouldn't do them. They do work. Our courts do not, unfortunately, work in a vacuum. She's right that only the courts can get them out. But, look what they did with Adnan Syed. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, affirmed his guilt. I mean, this is a movement that never says guilt, never says die, will come back and come back again. It's like Freddy Krueger, you can't kill them. It's D.A. Lewin said about something else. I mean, really, you can't. They come back and come back. So when Marilyn Mosby got put in with Open Society Foundation money to be the DA of Baltimore, and she was on her way out in a full, under fraud charges, they knew they had their moment to get him out. So they had the DA was the defense team and the DA were one. They were from the same ideology, same side, and there was no one representing the victim. You can go back to my interview with the Lee family's lawyer after that hearing that let Adnan Syed out. One of the few people that had, maybe the only person that had a really extensive interview with that guy, audio interview, and the way they treated the victim's family in that hearing was like, well, we have Sarah Koenig, we have all the cameras outside waiting for Adnan Syed to be released. We know that the victim, Heyman Lee's brother, Young Lee, just ran from California to get here to be heard. Oh, actually, wait, no, he didn't. That was, he got on a Zoom call because no one told him what was going on, because they were like, you might want to be able to watch on Zoom. No one told him he had a right to be heard. He didn't have anything prepared. He's like, can we just postpone this a week? And we're like, nope, not a week. The cameras are here. We got to see all these Adnan Syed out on the courthouse steps. And that's why the way that got out, that's why they reinstated such a gross violation. They reinstated Adnan Syed's conviction because it was such a gross violation of victims' rights in that case. And now they don't know what to do because they have a DA who's ideologically aligned, who is all for letting Adnan stay free and teaching at Georgetown University about quote unquote wrongful convictions with his buddy, Marty Tankleff. But he can't defend the fraud evidence that was handed into this judge that they all met in secret before the hearing to agree on and let him out on. Like the DNA on the bottom of Heyman Lee's shoes, not on her feet, but in the back of her car. Statement from a witness who was talking about Adnan Syed and his disturbing behavior around Heyman Lee before killing her. And this third suspect that was already ruled out. That's what they have to go back and convince a totally new judge of. They're having a hard time. Anybody watch Serial? I'm talking about Heyman Lee's killer, Adnan Syed. Absolute fraud. Not, very little was written on the actual fraud that got that guy out. People write about his guilt in fringe media, but nobody's talking about the fact that it was a total fraud that got him out and a gross violation of victims' rights.
With my picture on it, definitely.
With a false address?
I don't remember the address.
And it indicated you were 21 years old.
I'm not sure if it was 21 or over 21.
Do you recall the name on that ID?
Richard Stevens.
Do you still have that ID?
I don't know.
You have no idea?
I have no idea what I did with it after I got back from Israel.
So you had it during that period of time?
Yes.
And didn't you indicate that it was a DMV?
It was DMV.
Okay. So you didn't have to go to San Diego to buy shotguns. You could have used your fake DMV right here in Beverly Hills, or you even came to Van Nuys to look at a gun shop. You could have done that, couldn't you?
We could have bought them at the.
Objection. Argumentative.
Objection sustained. It's also a compound. Rephrase the question.
Now, sir, you've indicated that, or I believe your brother testified that once you understood that you couldn't buy the handguns at the Big Five store in Santa Monica, you didn't want to then say, okay, we'll settle on shotguns instead. You went to another store because you didn't want to stay at that store to make the purchase because it seemed kind of fishy, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained. Why don't you try to break it down a little bit?
Okay, got it. You learned that you couldn't buy the handguns in Santa Monica, correct?
Right. So it's not like they went into the store and were like, oh, you don't sell handguns here? Oh, we'll settle on shotguns. Any old gun will do for killing our parents. How many rounds did they take? Took off to a different... So that's pretty much the purpose of that ridiculous handgun story and how they were told they couldn't carry them out and that BS story.
Couldn't leave the store with your handguns that you selected, correct?
I learned that you couldn't buy handguns over the counter there. He said that there were guns behind him. There were rifles and there were shotguns behind him. He said,
oh, burn. Did you guys hear that, Lester Kuriyama? So you couldn't leave with the handguns that you selected, that you just spent the last 10 minutes telling us how you selected them. You couldn't... Oh, bird.
these you can carry with, you can just leave with today. But he said that handguns you can't.
So at that point, you decided not to buy the shotguns or the rifles that you could have bought and take them out that day. You decided it might look a little strange, so we better leave and go to another store.
No, actually, that's not what I was thinking at all. I hadn't even thought about shotguns or rifles or something that big because you couldn't carry it around with you. And I didn't understand exactly how I'd be able to protect myself if I didn't have guns.
Do you recall a testimony of your brother that he testified that he decided not to get the guns that you could carry out that day at that store because it would seem kind of strange? So you have to go to a different store.
Objection on this states the testimony of Amini.
Rephrase the question, please.
Do you remember having a discussion with your brother that you wouldn't buy the guns that could be gotten on the very day that you purchased them? There's no waiting period. Did you have a discussion with your brother that you shouldn't buy the guns, the rifles or shotguns, at that Santa Monica Big Five store?
No, I know we had that discussion down in San Diego at the first store that we went to.
So after you go into San Diego, or the Santa Monica Big Five store, find out you can't carry away your handguns that day, and you get back into the car.
Yes, sir.
Right? You just decide to go. Let me ask you this. Who was driving at that point?
My brother.
At some point, did your brother get on the freeway?
At some point, not immediately. We weren't intending to go down to San Diego right away. We weren't quite sure what we were going to be able to do at that point. And so eventually we decided to go down to San Diego to stay away from the house for the day.
When was that decision made?
At some point when we were driving around.
Where did you drive after you left the Big Five store in Santa Monica?
We drove in Santa Monica. We may have drove to the beach, I don't remember, but we weren't in Santa Monica. We were right across from the 405. That may be Santa Monica. We were driving right into Santa Monica. And so at that point, we decided to turn around and just head down to San Diego.
You just decided San Diego sounds like a good place to buy these guns. Let's go down there?
No, that's not at all what happened.
So you just kind of went with the flow of the traffic and you ended up in San Diego?
No, at that point, we were intending to go down to San Diego.
And you weren't intending to go down there so that you could hide the fact that you were buying these guns and use a false identification so the police wouldn't be able to trace those guns to you and your brother?
No, sir. We used my friend's brother's ID. That was definitely not our purpose.
You used your friend's brother's ID?
Yes.
And whose ID is that?
Donovan Goodrow.
and you had your own ID in your own, well, your own face anyway, with a different name, Stevenson, I believe you said. Stevens. You had that ID.
Yeah, Stevens, get my fake name right. I had a writing teacher in college, last name Stevens. That's a kind of same type, kind of appropriate. Stevens, get it right. It's any Cuban, perfect Cuban name for me. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm fading out, but let's see if we can get into some of the stuff about this ridiculous. All his ridiculous IDs.
ID that you could have used too.
I could have used that. There's no
But it has
question.
your picture on it, so you didn't want that connection to those guns. Isn't that right?
No, I could have used the gun. I mean, I could have used that ID, and it probably would have been better. And if I had known that you would needed ID to buy guns, I would have brought that, because that way I definitely would have been able to buy them, because I was the picture on the ID.
Right. I should have used my Stevens ID, and my friends who said, yeah, oh yeah. You know anyone who uses an fake ID with Stevens with like a picture that looks just like Erik Menendez on it? Oh yeah, I went out with Erik to this club using that ID, blah, blah, blah. I was using this ID. It came right back to him. And our $1.78 million shopping spree would have been put to an abrupt end, and we would have been arrested. I could have used it. I would have gotten the guns that day. I mean, this is like what a liar's testimony looks like. This is a liar's testimony. I believe that Leslie Abramson is 1,000% behind the concoction of this essay story and the entire defense, because it works so well with Arnel Salvatierra. Why wouldn't she use it again? I mean, you kill your father in his sleep and you get probation. I mean, granted, he was a juvenile, but still, it worked. I don't think still, I mean, that's remarkable for that crime.
When going into the Big Five in San Diego, I was a little worried that the lady might say, this isn't you on the ID. Because Donovan looks like me, but he isn't me.
And what are you saying? That you didn't have your ID with you that day?
The Richard Stevens?
Right.
No, I didn't carry around that in my wallet.
But you did carry Donovan Gaudreau's in your wallet?
Yes, Donovan Gaudreau was an ID that I just used if I was out, needed to go into a nightclub. I had two, so I kept one in my wallet, and I kept the real one in my bedroom.
So you would use the one that doesn't look like you most of the time, so that if someone looked at your ID, they'd say, wait a minute, this doesn't look like you. This is Donovan Gaudreau's face. This is not Erik Menendez's face.
No, I would.
Overall.
I mean, he's just getting destroyed here. And in a few minutes, some attorney's going to have a family emergency. Janie Garnett finally has a piece of common sense in the chat. That great argument here. She says all the energy they put into buying the guns and planning the murder, they could have used for leaving their home and going to the authorities. Thank you, Janie. Absolutely right. You know, when Gypsy Rose Blanchard came out, I did an episode about her, and I was very skeptical of parts of her story. Not skeptical enough, apparently, with what came out. Turned out that that was a total defense narrative, and she got a sweetheart deal, and a lot of people believe that she shouldn't have, and I may be one of those people. I certainly don't believe that she should be treated like a celebrity, and that's what she's doing. She's on the celebrity killer circuit. It's bizarre. That's what's going to happen with the Menendez brothers. They're going the Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Get ready for their TikTok career. They're already big on TikTok, so get ready.
No, I would use the Richard Stevens most of the time. If I knew, usually if I was going out to a nightclub or something, I knew I was going out there. So I go and I get the ID and I carry it there. But I lost my wallet several months before and I didn't want to lose this ID. So I didn't want to carry it around.
Which
my
ID?
wallet. The Richard Stevens.
So you would carry the other fake ID?
Yeah.
And that would be with you all the time?
That'd be with me all the time.
Right. It would outlast my mother and father. I wanted my ID with me all the time, but my mother and my father, I wanted to murder. Right. I've had my fill of the lying Menendez brothers, especially Erik for today. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this episode. Again, thank you for all your support, especially thank you to Patty's Playhouse. I really didn't thank her enough. I caught her live the other day, and I appreciate all the kind and complimentary things she said in that episode. I'm certainly a fan of hers. You know, she is on a stratospheric rise, and she deserves it. She's great at what she does. She's a very talented person and great at this. So thank you for your support. And I will see you back here hopefully tomorrow at 6, right? But I've lost all track of the days, but yeah, what is it, Tuesday? I think so. Yeah, Tuesday. I'll see you at 6. Have a great night, everybody. Before I go, here's my song for the Menendez brothers. They did it for the money. Have a great night, everybody.
Ice cream on the table, TV on the tube. You must have picked the label. Everything you heard is true. Your mom and dad, the sinner made us blue. Crack dealers, wells, is it boo-hoo or hoo-boo? We did it for the money. We consoled ourselves with Rolex watches, hand-tailored suits, ran our hand over designer fabric swatches, broke into the computer, rewrote that will. A Jeep Wrangler for a lady paid with bloody dollar bills. We did it for the money. Jim Cable leaves us, so does Rosie. Oh, strangers weep, we had it so bad. It's the Menendez Bros show. Just release us from prison. We'll play victims so well. Squeeze out some tears. The truth we never tell. Looking for suckers to manipulate emotions. Someone with empathy, enough to fill oceans. Just break these prison bars. They'll appear on your YouTube show. Lie and sob and wink. If you know, you know. We did it for the money. We did it for the money. We console ourselves with Rolex watches, hand-tailored suits, ran our hand over designer fabric swatches, broke into the computer, rewrote that will. A Jeep Wrangler for a lady paid with bloody dollar bills. We did it for the money. Kim K believes us, so does Rosie. Oh, strangers weep, we had it so bad. It's the Menendez Bros show. Just release us from prison. We'll play victims so well. Squeeze out some tears. The truth we never tell. Looking for suckers to manipulate emotions. Someone with empathy, enough to fill oceans. Just break these prison bars. We'll appear on your YouTube show. Lie and sob and wink. If you know, you know.
Hold on, before I go, Before I go, I want to thank Murder by Maestro. I am the biggest jerk. Did I forget you for holding down the chat? I'm sorry, guys. I'm just know the guilt. The guilt I feel will be enough. I'm sorry. Forgot you. Thank you, Murder for Maestro, for everything you do. I appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody.